Hello, everybody. So today I am talking about the case of Ellie Tran, and there was quite a bit of information on this one, so this is definitely going to be a longer video. I hope you don't mind. If my voice sounds a little weird, um, I've had this weird thing where my face will hurt when I talk too long. Um, yeah, don't know what that's about. And I've been filming a lot the last few days, so my face just feels sore. So if I'm not putting a lot of emphasis on something, it hurts. So if you're wondering why I might sound a little bit different or like a more like down, that's why. But other than that, all the links I used for research will be down below like always, and let's get into this. So Ellie was a 35-year-old single mother of a 2-year-old daughter. She worked as many hours as she could as a manicurist to support her child. Ellie was also living with her parents in Virginia Beach. They had moved over from Vietnam to help her raise her daughter, their grandchild, but they didn't speak English, and Ellie, who put family above all else, she insisted that she be the one to look over them. So she worked at various salons to bring in as much money as she could, and when she would get home, she would just fuss over her parents. So she was just like her child's caregiver as well as their own. On February 14th, 2017, while many people were celebrating with their partners, Ellie was content with her true love, which was her daughter. She was content with her life. She was the one good thing that came out of her tumultuous relationship with her ex, Joseph Marlino III. Joseph, 29 at the time, was the owner of a mobile phone repair shop in Oceanfront, Virginia. He fell for Ellie, and they dated for a few years when she would eventually fall pregnant. And that is where we get some tension. So Ellie thought it was important to have her family involved with the baby, and she expressed this to Joseph. So when her parents moved over, she wanted her and Joseph to live with him, and he wasn't really all for that. So when the baby was born, Ellie tried to make the relationship work, but Joseph became very controlling, and she eventually became scared of Joseph to the point where she would end things with him and just didn't have really anything to do with him. She even went to the police at one point and told them that Joseph had grabbed her by the neck in front of their daughter and threatened to put her, Ellie, quote, under the ground. And all Joseph got was a fine. And when I read this, knowing what happened, it pissed me off because there were very clear signs that this man was dangerous, harming the mother of his child in front of the child, threatening to put her under the ground. We know what that means. And knowing the outcome of this, what he does to her, they just felt like no one did anything for Ellie. Like, she reached out for help and they didn't do shit for her. Not surprising because we see this all the time, but it's gross. Ellie moved on with her life without Joseph, and she found a place with her parents to live. She got to work on paying bills, she would do chores, and she just took care of herself and them. And life was getting better for her, but her and Joseph would get into a really nasty custody battle. Ellie was working to provide, but Joseph had nothing better to do than make her life hell. He would break into her home, he would follow her, and it scared her so much that she had surveillance cameras fitted and even wrote in her diary that she was afraid of what he may try to do to her. Joseph already had a new girlfriend, but he refused to move on without his daughter. And that is when the events of her death begin. So, on the evening of February 17th, around 8 p.m., Ellie pulled into her driveway, but Joseph was there, and he was laying in wait. As she got out of the car and headed up to the front door, he attacked her. He plunged a syringe into her upper leg and injected her with a dose of cyanide. If you don't know what that is, cyanide is an extremely lethal poison that can result in immediate death in high enough doses. And there is surveillance footage of her arrival home, and you can see her walking with bags of some kind, but you can't really see Joseph where he was waiting for her. and I will have pictures of the surveillance footage on the screen. Joseph fled as Ellie screamed, and her mom heard the screams and ran outside to see what happened. Ellie was holding her leg and pointing to the figure running down the street, and she said, quote, "Merlino stuck something in my leg," end quote. Ellie was able to call 911, but after 15 minutes, she was unconscious and unable to breathe. Medics took her to Centara Princess Anne Hospital, but she was declared brain dead by midnight. The next day, she was taken off life support, and she had been killed by cyanide poisoning. Obviously, because it was known about their bad history, Joseph was brought in and he was questioned. Ellie's mom gave a positive ID that it was him who did it, but it wasn't clear on the footage if it was him. The attacker had worn a high visibility shirt to distort the image and make it harder to identify him. Joseph claimed he had been over 100 miles away visiting family in Victoria, Virginia, when Ellie was stabbed, and that it couldn't have been him. His cell phone did place him there, but no texts or calls were sent from it, meaning he might have not had it with him at the time. Police continued to look into the case and Joseph, and he quickly began to look even more guilty. He would go to a local pizza restaurant every day, and in January, the owner received a package addressed to Joseph. The owner told Joseph about it, and Joseph grabbed it and left. Police found a woman in New Hampshire who later testified that she'd sold a vintage steel syringe for $68 on Etsy to someone in Virginia Beach and shipped it to the same pizza joint. Police also discovered internet searches about cyanide on his laptop, and he had a flight booked to China. He was charged with Ellie's murder. While waiting for his trial, he went on a 2-month hunger strike and lost 40 pounds, and that was to try to make himself look different than the images that were captured on video. He also sent secret coded letters to his family and girlfriend that got intercepted. Police believed him to be trying to get his girlfriend to create a false chat log to give him an alibi and get friends to say they'd seen him both chatting at the time of the murder. Of course, Joseph pled not guilty. His defense argued he was over 100 miles away, and Joseph would take the stand and he would be questioned about those internet searches. And here are the internet searches in question. Quote, high quality syringes. Quote, what if cyanide gets into the bloodstream? End quote. Quote, how many milligrams of cyanide will kill you? End quote. But Joseph claimed anyone could have done it. Ellie's mom testified through a translator about the evening her daughter was attacked and said she saw Joseph across the street, and she sobbed hysterically at footage of Ellie's ambush that was played for the jury. Those photos are absolutely heartbreaking. I saw them when getting photos for this video and my research. And her mother is just sobbing, like, just crying out. Like, it's probably one of the most painful looking photos I've seen. And my heart just broke for this woman. Thankfully, Joseph was found guilty of first-degree murder, and he received a recommendation of life in prison by the jury. And this is a quote from Ellie's sister, and she commented on the verdict, and she says, "Justice has been made under American law. We just want to say thank you. Thank you so much." End quote. Joseph ended his hunger strike and awaited the penalty phase, but when he was brought back for that, there was an issue. He was wheeled into court in an upright gurney-type wheelchair, covered in a blanket, and he was foaming at the mouth, rolling side to side and unresponsive. Because of this, the judge was forced to postpone the penalty phase. A prison doctor said he could have been suffering from a mental condition brought on by the stress of being incarcerated and had started acting that way the morning of the sentencing. So supposedly he was so stressed about this, he just started foaming at the mouth and acting like this the day he was supposed to get his sentence. Convenient, right? He's so stressed. Maybe just don't kill the mother of your child, but that's just too logical for Joseph, apparently. I think it's obvious he was pulling a stunt to avoid the penalty hearing because he knew it would be bad and was still doing everything he could to make it about him and his innocence, and was still trying to get people to pity him, which prosecutors basically said the same thing in less words. They said he was faking the episode to avoid hearing the inevitable news that he's facing many years behind bars. But the following week, he finally got sentenced to life in prison. He blamed his lawyers for the way his trial went and said that he planned to appeal. And this is a quote from Joseph. If I had competent and well-endowed attorneys that actually knew the law and followed up with their clients instead of making instinctive decisions on their own without talking to their client, absolutely it would be in a better situation. End quote. Sir, just give it up. You murdered this woman. There's only so much they can do for you. You're just mad you're getting sentenced because you're a murderer. But he is guilty, and I think he would be found guilty every single time he wanted to appeal his case. I genuinely think it's that obvious. So, this is a quote from the Virginia Beach prosecutor Mario Lareo, and he says that this was a vile act, and it was a heinous act committed in an extraordinary way. He took steps to plan this and to plot this. End quote. Joseph went back to court at the request of a new attorney. In a handwritten petition, he asked for a new counsel out of Arlington, Virginia, who specializes in capital murder. The judge rejected the request for that attorney, but approved one Joseph didn't think was capable, the name Afshin Farashani, and he was then newly appointed that attorney. So, I did find some articles with the unpublished pages for his appeal dates, or for his appeal dated October 2023, but nothing else was found, and because those pages are officially unpublished, I don't know, or I don't want to state them as fact. As of now, Joseph is behind bars, probably plotting and scheming his appeal, and probably excited to drag Ellie's poor family through this bullshit again. But that being said, their daughter, Ellie and Joseph's daughter, is in the custody of Ellie's parents. So Ellie's daughter will still grow up with some love and family, but unfortunately she will not have either of her parents in her life. So once I know about if he's going to get an appeal or what's going to happen with that, I will come back to you guys and tell you all of that stuff, but that was all I was able to find on his appeal. And that's all I found on this case. I also want to say really quickly, I couldn't find a whole lot of I could not find a whole lot of photos about Ellie herself, so there's not really a whole lot of personal photos for this video, so I do apologize, but I wanted to talk about her. I heard about this case from Kendall Ray on YouTube, and it broke my heart, and I just wanted to tell you about Ellie and her daughter. But thank you guys so much for listening to Ellie's story. I hope that every single time Joseph tries to appeal his case, that he just gets rejected every time. He plotted and schemed this for months, or at least for a month, and actively wanted to take the life of Ellie because he wanted his daughter. And I don't think he should ever have custody of his daughter. He never should have. He willingly attacked the mother of his child in front of the child. He's not a good person, and I just hope that he stays behind bars for the rest of his life. He deserves to rot for what he did. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for listening to Ellie's story. I will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.